Ya'ate, hello. Welcome to Real Native Roots, Untold Stories, a podcast by a Native woman with deep roots, hosted by yours truly, Vickie Boy Oldman. I am a lover of stories, a connector, and a holder of wisdom keepers. Each month, we will be connecting with our Native relatives and exploring what medicine our guests share and offer to us. Please join me on this uncharted journey to learn, connect, and reflect. Ayahat. Thank you. Ya'ate. Hello, relatives. Welcome back. Welcome back to Real Native Roots Untold Stories. I am so excited to have you all here. I hope you're doing well. For those of you who have been following the podcast, thank you. Ayahat. Sending you a nice warm air hug from New Mexico. And for those of you who are new to our space, welcome to the family. I'm grateful that you're here, and I hope you continue to walk with us as we continue to collect stories from the community. So before I get started with today's conversation, I always like to check in. I like to share a little bit about what I've been learning or noticing in life. And so recently, I went to Trader Joe's. I'm not saying go shop there, but I went there. I was in the neighborhood and I bought this little flower. It was the cutest thing. It's the type of flower is a hyacinth. Hyacinth, I think is how you say it. I tell you, sometimes I crack myself up. I couldn't say this other flower word, but anyway, what was so cute about it is like in this little glass, and you just see the bulb, and then you see the roots at the bottom. And it hadn't bloomed yet. So I was like, I'm going to get that. So I put it in my office. And so it's been so lovely to see that the flowers have been blooming and the scent, holy moly, the scent it's you walk into my office, it smells like this flower. It is so cute. So I've just love watching it bloom and see it from beginning and then see the buds open up on the flowers. It's been such a beautiful thing to witness. And I love looking at the roots and seeing how it's just settling in to the water. And then the other thing that I'm noticing is this plant I got last year for my birthday last summer. And a friend brought a pot of flower and it was doing beautifully. It's yellow sunflowers. And my mom was not watering while I was traveling and I almost didn't make it. Then I have another friend down the road who said, I'll take it. So she took it to bring it back. And it's a beautiful glass vase. And what she did is she put these, I think they're lava rocks. They're small. They look like marbles. And she has that fill halfway through, then soil, and then she has a rope. And so she kept telling me just to keep filling up with the water. And it bloomed. It bloomed. There are pieces of it that I had to get rid of, but it's blooming. And I was just so happy because I feel like the plant that I got at Trader Joe's and then seeing this on bloom, and one is like really dark purple and then the other one is yellow. It's just telling me a story of particularly the one that almost didn't make it, how resilient we can be, you know? And then to see if you're patient, like this other plant, it'll bloom. It'll bloom when it needs to bloom. I can't rush it. So I was just so happy that I get to see the bloom. And sometimes when we think something is over, right? And with the right care and the right time, life will come back to it. And that's exactly what happened. So for me, these flowers are a reminder that blooming always begins with strong roots. So yeah. And I feel like that's the season I'm in. I have strong roots and we're in the springtime and there are new things that are going to be blooming for me. And I just have to be patient. And when the time is right, things will bloom when they need to. So that's what I'm noticing. So let me I got to read the poem. So I am reading from my favorite author, Richard Wagamese. And the book is called What Comes from Spirit. And as I was getting ready for today's podcast, this one landed for me. And I thought it's really short, but it's so powerful. And so I'm going to read it and then I'm going to introduce our guest. I'm going to ask her what she thinks. It's like 2 sentences from Richard. Okay, it starts this way. I've come to understand that the pain of a wound or a loss is over as soon as it happens. What follows is the pain of getting well. Isn't that powerful? The pain of a wound or a loss is over as soon as it happens. What follows is the pain of getting well. Ooh. Very powerful. Thank you, Richard. All right. Let me introduce my guest. I was so excited. So, for transparency, I did ask my friend that I'm going to be introducing. I asked her the first year because we're going in our 6th year of these podcasts. But I asked her in the first year. She just laughed. She never responded. She just like carried on. And then I asked her again. I think it was like the 3rd year. And she just giggled and then carried on. So this time I asked her, but this time I was not going to let her get away with a giggle and carry on. I was like, no, I want you to come on because she's a very, very special person in my life. And she is like these beautiful flowers I was just describing. She brings joy and beauty when we really need it. And I don't get emotional, but she's like I said, she's very special. And Barb is not only is she my business partner, she is like my sister. She's my concert buddy, my thought partner. We love to go eat really good food. Of course, on occasion, we like to have good wine. We like to explore and just really enjoy life. And we go on these road trips sometimes, and we spend time talking about the meaning of life and that life is really short. And what are we doing? Why are we taking, majority of our time to do things that don't really bring us joy when we should be doing this? So, and I'll also say she's one of the most generous people I know. Her name is Barbara. And I'll tell you a little bit more about her in that she's had more than 30 years of experience working across city, tribal government, nonprofit organizations, universities, and private enterprises. Her work has always been centered about helping people and communities so that they are in a place of strong capacity. She loves to help them think about their community, their organization to be in a sustainable place. She is definitely one who's worked on the ground in the community. She understands the real everyday challenges that organizations and community face. And what I love most about Barbara when I get to work with her is her spirit. She is a magnet. People are just drawn to her. She's like the flower and that has the pollen and all the bees that come. They just want a little bit of something from Barbara because they just know she's so positive, and you're going to hear her giggle. And that giggle is contagious. So that's why she got away twice. When I asked her, she giggled and she didn't respond. So I'm like, oh, that giggle ain't going to get me now. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened during COVID, because during COVID, she and her husband started something so beautiful. They created a flower garden. And before that, we would always have these conversations about creating another kind of business that would generate revenue. And we're thinking about our retirement days. And so anyway, they have created this beautiful oasis of flowers. And she sells them at the flower market, but she also gives a lot of it away too, to help organizations and just really support people. She's Native Hawaiian, and her life story includes being adopted and later on reconnecting with her birth family, and her roots are in Hawaii. She remains deeply connected to her relatives and really building a beautiful life in Milton Free Water with her husband and their fur babies. She's a self taught florist, a photographer, an artist, a community leader. She serves on a local foundation which stewards more than 85 million in assets while helping to lead a 40 million endowment campaign. So she's doing all of that, right? And then she's cutting flowers. So beyond all the things that I've said about Barbara, she's a person who reminds us about generosity, about beauty, about community, that can grow anywhere and sometimes even in the flower field. So today I'm really honored to share a beautiful conversation with someone I love deeply, my sister Barbara. Please bring your voice in this space. Tell people hello.
Aw, Vickie, you're so sweet. Oh my gosh, that was a really nice introduction. I feel famous.
You are famous.
Oh, yes. Why didn't I did I giggle? Did I just kind of push you aside kind of with a giggle? I don't
Both.
remember that.
Both.
Aw. Well, gosh, what do I say to that? I don't think I have to add anything. Yeah, I mean, I guess, share a little bit about my adoption. I was just a baby, but I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. But my parents weren't allowed to have children, or they just couldn't. I shouldn't say allowed, they couldn't have any children. And my dad looked at photo album after photo album of children in the 60s, and they just couldn't pick one. They would like to adopt all of them, but they got me. And back then, I think it
Aw.
was the welfare. I think back in the 60s, it was different. It was called a different name, but Department of Human Services. And then my dad adopted another baby in Bellingham when he got stationed over there from the Navy. And then my mom got pregnant and my sister came out. So we're a very multicultural family. And then 4 years later, my dad was stationed in San Diego and had my blonde haired, blue eyed brother as well. So if you saw all of us, we have a very mixed family. And, but I was very lucky, had a very loving family, and then got to meet my birth mother and my birth father and immerse myself in the Hawaiian culture. And therefore, I guess not to bore everybody, but that's when my Hawaiian name was given to me by my tutu, my grandmother from Miloli'i, Hawaii, which is the last fishing village in the state of Hawaii. And before she passed, she gave me the Hawaiian name Ku'ulei, which has multiple meanings in Hawaiian, but in short, I guess, a wreath of love is what my grandma, my tutu, shared.
Aw.
So that became my Kool-Aid flower farm. But I did skip over because I did marry my husband, who I met in Eugene, Oregon after graduate school. And who would have thought I would have ended up in a small town called Milton Free Water, Oregon, because that's where he's from. And we started a life together. We've been here 25 years. And he's a fruit orchardist, and he's the horticulture major, and he's the one behind the flower farm, because if you ask what a flower name is, he knows it in its Latin name. So I'm just in awe of him because I love the beauty of it. I love the flowers. I love the joy that it brings. And yes, it's nice to look outside and just say, wow, get away from the computer, but he knows a lot of it and he does a lot for me. So I wouldn't be able to have my flower farm without him.
Hmm. Thank you for bringing that into context. I do have some questions, but before we jump into that, what were your thoughts about Richard Wagame's two-sentence word? Or not two-sentence word, but his two sentences.
Yeah, that was pretty pretty nice, very lovely. The pain of a wound or loss is lost as soon as it happens. And what was the last? Because what follows is
What follows is the pain of getting well.
yeah,
Yeah, the pain of a wound or a loss is over as soon as it happens. Right. And then it says what follows is the pain of getting well.
that's deep.
Right. Two sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sit with that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like there's multiple layers in there. But if you're thinking from the lens, I mean, you could be thinking of the lens through different in different ways, but through a garden, I mean, I was thinking of the flower because I hate losing that flower when it dies, and you're seeing it in motion as it kind of tarnishes and gets brown and kind of crumbles and then but it's healing too. It's the pain of getting well. And when I'm out there in the garden, I feel like it is bringing not only healing, it's medicine too. And it brings joy not only to myself, but also to others, is what I was kind of thinking.
Mm, yeah, you're right. In multiple venues, it could be applicable to an animal, right? A loss of an animal. It could be applicable to even maybe work, something that you lost. And it could be a family member. When you read that statement, that could very well be a family member. It could be a partner in relationship. So it's really applicable.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like once it happens, the acceptance, it's like, okay, now I gotta heal from this. And sometimes healing is fast and sometimes it's slow.
Yeah.
Mm. Well,
Wow, what a lesson there,
I
Vickie.
know. Well, speaking of family, thank you for telling us about how that all happened, you and how the family found you. So, growing up in a very beautifully diverse family, what was it like growing up in that mix of culture and identities?
It's funny because you reflect back as you age. At the time we were it's pure love, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we were in the military. There was things I liked and things I didn't like. I hated moving all the time. Sometimes I'd stay in school for 2 months. Other times I'd stay maybe 2 or 3 years. I always envied those who could stay in one school or one location. But I think later in life you realize, well, that's probably it helped you. It helped me, at least. My mom would always say it helped you adapt to change well. And you don't really realize that until you get older too. And then you appreciate it more. But at the time growing up, it was hard. But what we loved and we didn't see it as maybe what people might say, oh, wow, I've always had our small community and that was it. Whereas not only were we a multicultural family, but we also had our neighbors and our friends, everybody that were from different cultures, whether you were Okinawan, Vietnamese, Japanese, Filipino, Portuguese, that was our life, and we didn't know any different. I think it became more clear to me later when I got older that I didn't see that diversity, right? So that was harder, I think. And it's harder. Sean wasn't sure I would want to move here to Melton Freeway because he says it might be going backwards. It's not as diverse, and you've done so much, and you've traveled all over, and I just want you to be able to truly be here with me if you can survive. That's what he said.
That's funny.
Yes.
And you fit in just right there.
Yes.
You're that unique flower in the field
Aw.
of the same kind of flowers that are there. Thank you for sharing. Like it taught you about adaptation and it was hard. And that as you got older, you didn't really see the diversity when you were younger, but you saw it more as you got older. What do you feel like your parents taught you, like your dad? What's one thing that just sits with you and what he's taught you? And then your mom as well.
Yeah, that's a good question, because they taught me so many different things. But I would have to say, well, love. And I lead with my heart. That is, it can be, there's pros and cons there, but I will have to put that back on my parents because they did lead with love and they taught us that simple trait, I think, that I guess I've taken with me throughout my life journey. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, my dad and both my mom and dad, um, they gave us the tools to survive. I think in the sense that we could flourish and be off, go and grow and become a citizen of the United States. No, that they would help us, flourish in the world. And you don't really think about that until, of course, you need to live on your own. But they did give us the tools.
What would be one tool that you think that you still refer to, and maybe you've even passed it down to your niece and nephew?
I feel like my dad was very good at trying to get me to think about what it is that I really wanted to do and be in life without telling me, right? Almost like a coach, but also giving me the tools to really be confident, resilient, to believe in yourself. And I feel like I did that really well in my younger years, 20s, 30s, 40s. And then you would think that in my 50s, by the time I reached my 50s, because I'm almost in my 60s now, that I feel like that has gone a little backwards, which I feel in some ways is what happened to my dad, too.
Hmm.
He was so confident and gave so much to everybody else and helped them through their lives and helped to raise all of us four kids. And then as he got older, we kind of saw that dissipate, like he was becoming the kid again. And sometimes I think back, is that what I'm doing? Because my dad was so confident, and that was one of the things that us kids, as he aged, we saw that kind of disappear. So I'm still, I think, yeah, they gave me those tools, and I have to always make sure that I go back and remember that. And I think, having good friends and who support you to continue that confidence that you can do it.
When did you realize that you were adopted? Did they tell you, from the very beginning? And how did that land for you? Did you understand what that meant?
Wow, you're making me dig deep now. um, you know, in learning my adoption journey, learning more about it, I never felt different. I mean, I looked different, right? I knew that, but I never felt different in the family. My mom and dad made sure that all of us were the same, I guess. And so, I mean, I don't know what they were thinking there, but I felt like we weren't treated differently. And they always told me I was adopted from whenever I could comprehend that. And you can look at my pictures and it's funny or I don't know what the word is when you're this little Hawaiian girl and everybody is, non-native and you're the center of attention. But it was me, as everyone's sitting around me and they're like, oh my gosh. But you look at the pictures thinking, wow, I guess that would have been hard from my mom and dad's perspective in some ways. I remember asking my dad about that. He said, well, we didn't care what ethnicity. We just wanted to have a house full of kids and love kids and so but it is funny as you reflect back when, especially as I'm older, and you look back and you think this was probably a big deal in
Mm.
67, um to really be in that space. I wasn't in my mom and dad's headspace, but I'm sure there were questions. And then they adopted my brother who's Japanese German. So, and then you have two blonde haired kids, right? So I'm sure there was a lot of questions that they asked my parents. But I just know my mom and dad wanted a house full of kids, and then we have pictures and of the neighborhood kids coming over, and dad would make the ice cream with all four of us kids, and sharing those with the neighbor kids. They yes, just I was very lucky.
Mm. At what point did you start becoming curious about your Hawaiian roots?
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother story too, because I went off to college and when I was 17, and I hadn't met a lot of adopted children or adopted people in general. And we were always traveling. It wasn't something I was looking at. But when I got to college, there was probably 24 of us in the dorm, and almost three quarters of all the students, all of us in that hall, were adopted.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I mean, we were all sharing our story, and it one after the other. And I thought, I wonder if that was planned. But one of my friends who became a good friend, and she was adopted, and she was having her first kid, about mid-20s, and she said, Barb, let's go search for our birth mother. And I said, well, I don't know, because I figured if my mom gave me up, why would she want me to look for her? But I was curious because there was health issues starting to surface, and of course you go into the doctors and they're always saying, hey, is this on your mom's side? Is this on your dad's side? I'm like, no,
Mhm.
actually, I'm adopted. So they're like, oh, okay. And then, everybody, if they saw my dad, I was with my dad, they'd say, oh, is your mom Hawaiian? If they see my mom, if I was with my mom, they'd say, oh, is your dad Hawaiian? They just didn't understand.
Mhm.
And so that brought curiosity. So I really wanted to learn more about who I was, because people would always say, are you Mexican? Are you Indian? That would be what I grew up with
Right?
throughout my life. And I'd say, well, no, I'm Hawaiian, but not really knowing what that meant. And so that kind of sparked my journey. And plus, my parents did support me. My parents wanted to help as much as possible. But back in the 60s,
Mhm.
it was so easy to adopt. And then, of course, you learn more about how that all worked. And my dad, when he walked into the welfare unit in Hawaii at the time, 67, returning the photo albums of pictures of kids, he just said, we want her. Because I was just sitting there in a rocking chair with one of the case managers. And so, 2 weeks later and $200, I was adopted.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It's not like that now.
No, not at
Nope.
all.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it was hard for my dad. He always shared that story of they wanted to adopt everyone. They just felt so sad. But then we know the history as we, age and we learn more about that. And then you're thinking, oh, you know, um, so anyway,
So what was it like reconnecting with your birth family? What did you feel maybe was awakened in you when that happened?
yeah, I mean, I asked my parents if it would be okay. I didn't want to upset them. And they said, sure. Well, we don't have much, but here's what we do have. And then I filed with the vital statistics in the state of Hawaii. And they just said, yes, we know your mom's name, but we can't give it to you. And if we'll send this information, fill out the application, we'll send it off as a letter. And if she responds and she wants to meet you, then she'll reach out to you. And I said, okay. And then if she doesn't, then the search ends, or you can pursue and hire a private investigator.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a lot to just, I don't know, digest, because I was just
Yeah.
starting. I had a really good support group with a bunch of friends who were supporting me, because I didn't know I had no idea what I was unraveling or what was going to happen. But believe it or not, yeah, my birth mother just by chance went by her dad's house, who he had already sold the place, and she just checked the mailbox one last time,
Wow.
and the letter was there. And she called me within, I think I did it, it was within 2 weeks. And I was just joining a support group and I did not know what to expect. And then I was super nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so I called her and it was like talking for 2 hours. And then we just kept talking. And then we finally met each other. And then it was like looking in the mirror.
Mm.
Like, wow. And then of course she tells me about my birth father, which I waited for another year, but that's a whole nother story. They never stayed together, but I think I was just as nervous. I bet you she was even more nervous, because I'm after getting to know her and her story, it was a bunch of emotions.
Yeah.
Some bad, maybe a lot bad in that day, because in that time frame, that era, you you would have been a bastard child. I mean, she told me that whole story of how she was criticized for having a baby out of wedlock. And in Hawaii, other family members take you in, but she didn't feel like that was an option. Her parents were divorced and her brothers and sisters were in different spaces. And yeah, so she thought God was punishing her most of her life until I found her, right? She thought that, I think she had 3 or 4 miscarriages. She did end up having another son, and we've met him. I have all these half brothers and sisters. I feel like I am related to the half state of Hawaii. Seriously, I've embraced so many people, and they've embraced me, and it may not have been under the best circumstances, because there was a lot of, I think, pain for my birth mother, but at the same time it was closure for her, and realizing that she wasn't really this horrible person. And she met my parents, thanked my parents for raising me, and then my parents thanked her for giving me birth.
Oh.
Yeah. So it all worked out really well. And I made her, that was one of the things I realized for her. But I told her that everything worked out great. And so she met my whole family, and everybody just embraced her. So both, she's passed on by now, but I'm so glad. I think I had at least 10 to 15 years with her to really
Oh.
hear her story. I wish I would have kept her story. It would have been great if you had your podcast and you could capture her story, because it's amazing.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one of her sisters
Well, could be. Could
could
be.
be. Well,
Yeah.
it just blows me away I that it was
Mhm.
meant to be, because they were getting ready to move and she just goes back to the house one more time to check the mail. And there's the letter. And when you were describing that, honestly, my stomach started to turn because I'm like, God, at that age to process, like, I don't know if I'm going to get a call back or, and if I do, and that, that was a lot, even just for me to hear and receive that. And I'm just so glad though, because you have a beautiful family, both sides. And I know that you guys are all super close. And now you go back and see family back in Hawaii. And then you also have your family here in the mainlands that you spend a lot of time with. Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel I'm so glad I met her. And then that led me to my birth father, Willie Calpico, which is on his side, his mom's side. She was in her 90s. And her story just, I mean, there's just so much. I mean, her story was very heart wrenching just because she was in her 90s. She was probably 90 pounds, but she was in Middle East. She had to quit fifth grade to take care of her 11 brothers and sisters and fish. And her words to me when we first met, because I was going to graduate school, and she said, just keep getting your education. And she sang me a song on her ukulele, which was so beautiful. But it grounds you, right? I think that's the thing about my Hawaiian culture, that I had so much love in my, non-native family, but I didn't understand or even know what it means to be Hawaiian. And then I got to meet the family hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Still today, 'cause I have three brothers, well, actually four brothers and sisters, Willie on my birth father's side. So, and I think growing, because there's probably more out there. He was a Hawaiian surfer boy. So, but anyway, yes, it's an extended family for sure, but you're all, you have hundreds of cousins and aunties and uncles, and everybody really does take care of everybody, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's a long story in itself. But I'm so thankful that I have met them and that I understand. I know there's more to learn, but I'm so thankful that I have got to meet so many people and be a part of their world, of their communities.
How old were you when you found out who your mom was?
I was probably 25.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
during that time you were in school and then after
No,
school.
not yet.
Oh, you weren't in college yet?
Well, I was done. I was working for the city at that time, but I didn't apply. I went to graduate school when I was 29. So I got to
Mm.
meet her before I did that. But I knew I wanted to go. But and then it just happened that I met my birth mother, and I would go and visit her. And it was like having a close friend, right? A best friend that in my 20s. It's probably better that I did meet her in my 20s, because if I was in high school, maybe I might have like, I can't, my dad, because they were, you're not going over to your friend's house because we don't know their parents. So, some of that rebellious teenager that if I had met my birth mother, maybe it would have been a different experience at that time, because I wasn't as mature enough.
I was like, Barb as rebellious?
Yeah.
What would that look like?
A little bit, not too much. Remind you, I was the oldest sibling. So I had to be responsible. I was always helping my mom, around the
Yeah.
house, helping clean and take care of my brothers and sisters, even though they're like, you're not my mom, we're not listening to you.
Well, as you were talking, it just made me think about it probably felt like the missing puzzle that you've been wanting. You grew up in a very loving family. They modeled love. They gave you the mentorship and tools and support to navigate. And then, but you just always knew like something was missing. And then when you connect it with them and you start to feel the community and experience what does it mean in this Hawaiian culture to take care of one another and to start to hear the language and the food. I bet you just felt this is the piece that I've been always wondering. And maybe there was not even a word for it earlier, you know. I have a friend who's also adopted and she tells me her story. And then I think 2 years ago, I had a podcast guest. His name is Brian Parker, and he talked about his story. I had him and his wife on, and she was the one who was like, let's find them. She's so funny. They're on Facebook, and sure enough, like within 30 minutes, she
Oh my
found him.
goodness.
And
Wow.
he was like you. He was a little hesitant. He was like, I don't know, you know. Anyway, it ended up being a nice story in the end. Well, the reason why I asked about your age, because you were working in the city, you were not working in an Indian country then. And it got me curious. And maybe you told me and I don't remember, but I'm curious, like, how did you end up there? What led you to doing the work in Indian country?
Yeah, well, that's a story in itself too. Because after graduate school, I did come back to Eugene, Oregon. That's where my parents were living, and that's how I met Sean. But I was on a different track. I mean, my lens was I was either going to join the Peace Corps or go back to Hawaii and do more community development and planning work. But I worked for a nonprofit, and there were two women there, Elaine and Casey. I'll have to share this podcast with them, but they were instrumental. They were instrumental in trying to keep me in Eugene. But Elaine is the one who set me up with Sean. And I said, well, that's okay. I'm not, and I don't want to be in a relationship. But she kept nudging me. And finally, that's how we met. And of course, unfortunately, that was Elaine's fault because then Sean swept me away to Milton Freewater. Every, Everybody in Eugene said, well, you should work for one of the tribal tribes. And there's one over there. And I said, oh, okay. I didn't know anything. And so they sent me the job description and I looked it up and I said, wow, I had no idea. And so yeah, got an interview with the Confederated Tribes, the Umatilla Indian Reservation, and they basically hired me on the spot on a Friday afternoon.
Well, of course, of course.
But I didn't, I said, well, I'm not even here yet. I haven't moved here. I'm still living in Eugene. And there you go. That's how, and it was history from there. Because I interviewed, I think, for a couple other jobs. I didn't feel like that was a really good fit. But with the tribes, I thought, wow. And then I felt like home again, right? I
Aw.
felt so in Hawaii, it was kind of, that embracing of my culture and people looking like me. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And then when I went to work for the tribe, they embraced me with just kind of the same way, right? I had so many friends and just people because I was developing their first financial credit and home ownership program for them. And it was amazing. And people, I loved it. I mean, it was great. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
When did you realize that the work here really mattered? I know we're always learning, but I'm curious what working in tribal have taught you.
Gosh, that's a really good question too. I didn't realize, the tribal government and yeah, learning about indigenous communities who, we had already done a lot of that financial credit work, 20 years before. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is why aren't we how is this new? How is this why hasn't it been taught? Why is it just happening now? I think I had a lot to learn. And then I felt at home. I felt like this is my place to be. And I remember my dad telling me that, like maybe you might want to go. And when I was younger, I didn't understand it all, but he says you might want to work with more of your people, maybe to
Hmm.
give back, or maybe that's you're here to give what you've learned,
Hmm.
your knowledge and wisdom and skills, and to go back and give that to other communities like Hawaiian communities or indigenous communities. So yeah, I think it became more apparent, of course, as you're there going, what? Why is that? Why is this not why are they not getting these tools, right? And so that was really empowering, not only for myself to just like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is my purpose. It's my calling. And yeah, so many you talk about flowers, just lots of empowering them to protect themselves, to understand what credit is, budget. Not that they didn't know, but there are a lot of shady people out there we have to protect ourselves from. So it was empowering for them. And that's what made me feel like I was in, it's my place, I guess is what I'm saying.
I love it. It's like your third home, right? Your first home
Mhm.
with your family who raised you, and then you found your birth home, and then you found your third home, which is the work in Indian country.
I know. Isn't it funny? I like
Yeah.
it all unraveled after, well, it took what, 2 decades?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you and all the work that you've done in Indian country and still are doing in Indian country.
That's right.
Yeah. And now you're in this whole nother endeavor. Curious about the flower garden, but tell us that story. I've had the privilege to be in her garden, seeing the flowers, and it's been such a joy.
Yeah. I mean, there's a pivotal moment for a lot of your audience members. I am in my late 50s. So you start thinking about stuff. I'm not the healthiest. I inherited, genetics, having type 1 diabetes, and which seemed, that's something else I learned, right? It's part of our bloodline. And learning about those things has been challenging for me, but it is what it is. So I have to, I'm adapting and pivoting and trying to take care of myself. So in 2020, I think it's just I remember I reflect back because Sean and I was traveling, as Vickie knows, we do a lot of traveling. And I had been traveling almost every week. And then 2020 hits. So I had been doing that for a while, that life. And 2020 hits, and we look at each other, my husband and I just kind of said, it was probably, I don't know, at least a few months in, maybe 6 months in. I said, I think I like being home. I like
Aw.
being home more. And he looked at me too, and he just says, I like having you home.
Oh.
And so I said, I love flowers. I do, but I also love arranging them probably more than being out in the dirt all day long. But it was good for me. It's healing and it's medicine. But I turned to him and I said, well, what about doing a little flower farm? Now I was thinking small, so like our backyard only. But no, he takes down more apple trees, and so we have a whole nother. And I took a class. I took this floret flower farm class that came highly recommended, but not knowing that everybody else in the world was pretty much doing the same thing. Everybody wanted to pivot. I think that was the time where we all breathed and kind of reflected and said and reimagined what's most important and what do I need to do to I don't know, before I guess we go to the next plane. That's what you always say. So that's what happened. 2020, and then we just been rocking and rolling since then.
It's a lot of work. And you definitely have a gift in really putting arrangements together for sure. As you are working with the flowers, what do you feel like the flowers are teaching you?
Mm. Yeah, I think they're teaching me to slow down, create more beauty in your life. I feel like I'm like when I'm out there, I just feel like, you know, I don't know. I'm just playing with the colors and it just comes. I don't have to really think about it. I know some people, they have to have like the color pattern, or I just do it. And it might not be, some of those high end arrangements, or I'm not, and I'm not doing high end weddings. And that's what I love about these are all wildflowers, they might have dings on them, they might have bug bites, but they're still beautiful. So I think really just slowing down, preservation, being outdoors, yeah, not having to think really hard, just having fun. And I think that's a reminder for everyone is, I think we forget because we're all stuck on we got to work, we got to pay the bills. But I think we've been so blessed to find something that we love doing. I mean, the work that we do with Seven Sisters, and then also having a purpose or calling, and then just having a space, whether some people like to go run or hike or bake, you know, I like to do flowers.
Mm. Do you see parallels between tending flowers and tending communities?
Oh gosh. Oh, definitely. It's funny because I just did a 2.5 day summit and walked away with lots of great information. But it's funny how the same work and you've helped us shape that, but the work of what's our why? What's our purpose? Why are we doing, why are we growing flowers? And what do you want out of it? Is there something you want out of it? But what's going back to that why? And I think a lot of people, like myself, we got into it. We're like, oh, I love every flower. You look at the catalogs like shoes or something, but you're like, oh, I need that flower. I need that flower. But it's really, shifting your mindset. A useful mindset is what resonated in our conference. Really being focused, and we listened to 13 different presenters who are expert flower farmers, and so hearing their stories really helped. Just in the work that we do, it's the same questions, right? It's the same coaching questions, and having a plan the work the plan. And they have a lot of buzzwords. And it's funny because I think, using scale and everything that we have to plant, like you can't just go out. Well, you can go out there and start planting. But if you don't have a plan, what about pest management? I mean, it's the same thing, right? You're trying to be more preventative. So they really were telling us, plan, and a lot of people don't want to. They just want to. Oh, you can't just throw your seeds out into the soil. Well, you could, but you still have to plan. You still have to plan what kind of flowers you're going to plant, and we have to dig deeper because if you have there's certain flowers that just aren't good in the vase, so you have to think about that. How long are they in the vase? How long do you get a season of them? Everything that we do a lot of planning. We do a lot of pre-plan work. We do a lot of practicing. It's the same thing. So I've been practicing for 5 years. What grows well, what doesn't, toss aside. or get rid of.
What's the future for the flower farm going forward? What are some ideas that you've been thinking about?
Well, I can't give away all my secrets, but
Yeah, you just the ones that you feel safe in sharing. And
oh, it's all good. I think I'm reimagining for sure. I mean, we got 2.5 days full of such rich information. I mean, it was just amazing. And I think at the end of the day is downsizing a little bit. Not necessarily, all the flowers because we added a high tunnel this last year. But what are your best growers and maybe add more of those? So if it's my dahlias, I do appreciate hearing from one of the experts, one of the farmers who said, some people go by varieties. So if you want to have a certain flower, you're going to label them accordingly. And he's a big wedding guy in Montana. He says, but I go by color because if you're working in the field, you're going to have all your whites on one end. He goes, those are my big sellers for weddings. So I'm going to put all my whites. It could all be different kinds, but all my whites will be there. All my burgundies on the other side. I was like, ah. I was like, oh, that's wise. They gave a lot of tips and tools of, I think if I just want to focus more. I want to be more focused, and we don't. Of course, we say this at Seven Sisters: work smarter, not harder. Um, and hearing from other farmers, and some have learned a lot in their 5, 12, 15, 20 years, and some of people are just starting, so they're getting a lot of great information. At the end of the day, we're all doing something different, but something similar. And I want to keep the joy. But I think what my key takeaway is, um, invest in yourself. You should be making a profit, because this one thing that came out was, why do we as women always think that we aren't worth asking for what we're worth? And they said, we always have excuses. Oh, we're a small town. People won't pay for it. Or, we always doubt ourselves. So I want to build up that confidence again. And yeah, I think that's a few things.
oh yeah, that was a lot. I thought, yeah, no, in a good way. And it also made me think how applicable what you've learned, not only about the flower garden, but for any business and even for ourselves. I'm hearing a lot of organizations are starting to downsize and get really narrow and revisiting their mission and vision to see, are we doing too much? What does that look like to focus? So
Oh, which that is one thing that I thought was fascinating, because a lot of these people came from corporate jobs or tech jobs and they wanted a change in their life too. But they said, a lot of businesses, yes, we do planning, you do strategic planning, but now people are doing it by quarters, maybe not necessarily doing one year for sure, but they said they're doing quarterly plans because things have been shifting so much in the economy and stuff like that. But I thought that was fascinating. So instead of like, oh, year plan, we're going to do a two or quarterly 1 and 2, something like that. I thought that was interesting.
so much to do, right? So much opportunity. It made me also think about, I think about in Indian country, there's so much potential opportunity. And it just made me think about my reservation that there's an opportunity for people to start their own flower garden, and sell flowers.
Yes,
And
yes. There's definitely a lot of opportunity. And I learned that from my first instructor who just said People say, oh, there's so many other flower farmers, and I don't know why, why it's just mine. Like, who would want to come buy my flowers? But the world needs more flowers. And that also came out in this summit as well, where people
Oh,
want to grow more. And why not?
I love that. The world needs
Yeah.
more flowers. I can
Mhm.
buy myself flowers. I'm so out of
Yes.
tune. Sing that Miley Cyrus song, Flowers. Oh my gosh, my throat. Well, earlier when I was introducing you, I had said, I watch people, they gather around you like bees to a flower. What do you think people are actually seeking when they come towards beauty like that?
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh my gosh, Vicki. That's funny. I think people feel. I mean, I've people have shared with me that I think people feel safe and comfortable. I mean, that's how. When I mean, reflecting back when I worked at the tribe, and well, most people they meet with me about their credit, which they didn't know about, their finances, and people shared everything. And they said, you know what? I wouldn't share this with just anybody. And I said, well, I'm glad that you feel comfortable, and we had so many people that came in that just felt comfortable sharing their information. So maybe there's that comfortability, no judgment, or.
Well, you shared so much about what this flower journey has offered you, and you're still learning a lot from it. And you shared with us where you at in the season of your life. You're in your fall season. What would you tell folks in terms of, or share with us what you're learning about yourself in this chapter now?
Mm, I am learning to slow down because my body just can't go like I used to anyway. There's no competition anymore.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, no competition. I think it was more competition with ourselves, right? I mean, oh, I got to
Hmm.
run faster and I got to, work out 5 times a day. And no, I don't. I should do more, but I'm slowing down and slowing down not only with what I'm doing physically, but I also am just slowing down in the sense of, okay, so what's on my bucket list? Like, what else is there that I want to do? The walk away. I think the key takeaway there is really just what is most important.
Hmm. So, what would you tell our listeners? What
Mm.
would be some wisdom that you want to leave with them? You shared so much about your journey with your family and reconnecting with your finding three homes, right? Your first home and then your birth home and then your home into Indian country. And your fourth home is really the flower garden. So you have several homes that anchor you. What would you leave with our messengers? What do you want to share with them about if you had to give them one word of advice about how they're journeying this life? What would you share?
Oh gosh, one word of advice. One word.
Well, advice, advice, advice.
Gosh, I would say live. If you're scared about something, try it. Just do it. I can tell you that I have a lot of friends who are retired, and they always say, "Barb, we never wish that we worked more." So do what you want to do, and don't just keep working. It's not. We're retired. I said, well, why didn't you ask that question to yourselves when you were working? And they probably did, because I said, well, it's easier to say that now that you're retired. But I
Yeah.
think that's the bubbling theme. Everyone says you just need, if it is planting a flower farm or garden, or if it's running that marathon or traveling somewhere. Yeah, life is short. I do hear that quite a bit. Just do it. make, oh, I'm not trying to advertise for Nike, um, but it's kind of true. I feel like, because now as I'm slowing down, I guess circling back to the beginning when I shared my story, I was always envious of those who were rooted in one, like they got to grow up in one house, one community. And it's ironic that I'm in that space now, and maybe that was part of my journey to end up here. And it feels good. I don't know if I would have done it in my 20s at all, but Sean created that stability and groundedness for that, where I was more I like to gallivant and travel and go and see the world, but I think it was just the right time, right? To be where we're at amongst a flower garden or flower farm, whatever you want to call it.
I love it. So you heard it, folks.
Mhm.
You're scared. It's okay to be scared. Just do it. You won't know unless you try. Life is short. So I would love to go to fire round. I have
Gosh, I
some
forgot about that.
questions.
Mm.
I know fire round's meant to go fast. Sometimes though, I ask the question and it's like, oh, wow, that's going to be a little long-winded response, but that's okay. What do your dogs think you do all day?
Yeah, they're not happy with me when I'm on my computer. If I'm out in the garden, they love it. But I think they're so smart. They're border collies. Katie knows. She'll put her head to the side, but they just sleep. They lay down, sleep.
If they could talk, what would they say?
Yeah, like get off your computer and let's go for a walk.
They think you sit in front of the TV, which AKA computer all day.
Oh yeah, they'll come. Katie will come up and put her head on my leg here.
Right here down below, I have Charlie and then I have Noodles. Noodles is my Siamese. So they're right here listening to our combo. They're taking their afternoon nap.
Exactly.
Okay. Your favorite thing about living in Milton Free Water?
The open space, quietness, open space.
A place in Hawaii that still lives in your heart.
Mm, the culture, the people, my lineage. Yeah, a lot of that lives in my heart.
Favorite flower in your garden right now?
Well, there isn't much except for I have some daffodils or narcissus, what they call them, and then tulips that are just about ready to bloom.
I need to get me some tulip bulbs because my friend gave me a glass jar where you can just put water and it'll bloom.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
So
cool.
anyway, digressing here. Okay, a flower that best represents your personality.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, for those that don't know, I grow dahlias, but we have roses and lavender and sunflowers and zinnias and lots of other kinds. But dahlias, they're divas. They're divas because they're so high maintenance, because they takes a lot of work, and they're hard to grow over here on the west side. They're not as hard, but so my favorite are dahlias. But you're asking for me to have like a favorite dahlia.
Well, a flower that represents your personality. So are you a high maintenance diva? Is that what you're saying?
In some ways, probably Sean would say that because he's having to help me. He's building me a storage and or cold storage so that I can actually have my flowers stay cool when it's hot, and then save them for those that pick up buckets or that I have to deliver. Yeah, I think he would definitely call me a diva.
All right. A smell that instantly brings you peace.
Mm. I kind of go back to in Hawaii, like the pu'u keni flower, or some of those tropical flowers like gardenia or pikake. There's just instant, I don't know what it is, but it's tropical, but I don't know, it's just like, wow. And you just feel like you're in, I don't know. I guess you're in paradise. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know. It's calming. It's calming and delicious.
All right, last one.
Mm.
A piece of advice your younger self needed to hear.
That I'm worth it. I learned that this week. In the sense of where we were talking about, we're worth investing in ourselves. I think I feel like I was a lot more confident when I was younger, but yeah, that I'm worth it, even throughout when I get older.
Mm,
Mm,
I love that. I really do. I needed to hear that. So thank
mm,
you for that.
aw,
Well, folks, honestly, if the world were a garden, what kind of flower do you think humanity needs to plant right now?
aw.
Seriously. So, before we close today's episode, I just want to share a few reflections. Barb said so much. Lead with love. And one of the words from her family, she never felt different. So, what would that look like if we are amongst people, whether it's chosen community, chosen family, people you work with? What would it take to help them feel like they're not different? Right? And that a lot of the work that we're doing, like flowers and communities, all need tending. They need some kind of plan. It would be easy just to throw the seeds out, but you want to have an opportunity to really see things from a different perspective. Her flower garden, that beauty, that abundance, it doesn't appear overnight. They grow with care, they grow with patience and intention. So, whatever path you're walking on, the process is very similar. And Barb reminds us that generosity can be that way in life, and that leadership can look like that too. Tending to the soil, sharing flowers, creating spaces where people feel safe and they feel comfortable being vulnerable. So, Barbara, thank you, Ahiahat Shadeja, which means thank you, my sister, for sharing your story, your wisdom, your laughter with us today. I am so grateful to call you my sister and my friend. And to everyone listening, Ahiahat, thank you for joining us here at Real Native Roots, Untold Stories. Until then, until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep tending to the roots that help you bloom.
You're so good. I love you.
I love you too.